ready. I'm ready.
Get ready to share that YouTube link, man. It's fucking crazy. It's
All right, we're
absolutely
back.
crazy.
We're back, guys. We're back.
We're
Gonna,
absolutely back.
gonna talk a little bit of Dota 2 here, which is
Everyone's
AKA
favorite
Cody.
part of the show. Everyone's
Cody's
favorite part of the
segment.
show. Yeah.
So lots of interesting news, very
I think
strange
interesting
news going
is
on in
accurate.
Dota 2.
So we're gonna start with robberies.
Robberies, exactly.
Big drama out of the League of Legends scene is like fucking a journalist won't allow or rather can't talk to players. Dota drama of the week, people getting fucking robbed, son. And that's the difference between League of Legends and Dota's, I think. So if people, you guys actually might have saw this because this was actually, I think, #1 on our gaming. Gaming's the biggest one, right? It's not games.
No,
Our
gaming's
gaming
the biggest one. Games tries to be a little bit more serious.
Yeah.
Yeah, gaming yesterday. Two folks, one of the TI casters, Sunspan, he and his girlfriend were robbed yesterday, and it was caught on stream.
Oh,
Absolutely
yeah.
insane was
crazy.
that. Yeah, they were streaming really early. Sunsfan heard a loud crash in a living room, so he
Great.
proceeded to investigate. His girlfriend, who was streaming at the same time, defending, I think, the T1 middle tower, heard it herself, and then decided to go investigate, and robbed at gunpoint, man. It was absolutely crazy. Chris, could you share that YouTube link?
Okay, let me... Is it in the chat here? Can you...
No, it's in the... It's
notes?
right... Yeah, it's in the show notes.
Okay, let me get it.
I mean,
So...
yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
go on, bro.
so
That's crazy.
the gist of it was they were trying to rob someone else. They had mistaken the apartment or house, and the robbers just crashed through. They were like, "Okay, this got to be the place." You know, all lights on at 4:30 in the morning. Totally smells. It totally, you know, it smells like
Smells
a
of
drug
gamer.
den. Yeah, it's a gamer or a drug den. So they just crashed through, and they're like, "Oh shit, this isn't the place. Like, let's do our best." From what I've gathered, I haven't talked to the person. From what I've gathered, they roll through. They see Sunsfan in the front, and they hold him up. And I actually think that it was the people in the stream that got one person is in custody, and I think it's largely thanks to the folks in the stream. Like at one point in time, there's like a very short, like maybe 40-second version of the stream where you see the person go into the streaming room. Yeah, exactly. So you got it up now.
Yeah.
And like you see the person with the gun walk in.
Yeah,
a
right
person
there.
with the gun. Yeah. They were gonna do crazy shit, like they were gonna hold her hostage and then like make him go to the bank to take extra money out after the fact. It's just like that's just absolutely insane. That's just crazy. That's not even Dota news. That's just like so crazy. You know, the
I mean,
technology.
I got to be honest. Like, I got messaged about it, right? Not long after it happened, and I was like, man, streamers be desperate. Like, this is what Twitch has fucking brought us all to. Like, we're gonna pretend that
like Phantom,
honestly,
like Phantom, or like pretending to be
A Fiend
duped by these-
2.0.
Yeah.
yeah, I thought it was gonna be complete fake fucking bullshit, man. Like,
No, it's
'cause it
real.
seems so ridiculous, and I know a lot of people still believe that to be the case, but it isn't. I know we've laughed a little bit about them today, but you know, it was reported on Fox News, so it must be true. But I mean, I did think it was interesting because I saw some of the comments and whatnot that were going on at the time, and the way it was pitched to me by the guy was like going, "Oh man, Twitch chat, yeah, we're gonna be taken seriously now, like Twitch chat is some sort of like tribe, you know, that needs to be represented in the media because we've saved lives." And I got shown some pictures, and it was like people going, "Man, I hope they rape that bitch." And shit like that. Like,
Oh, the
people
YouTube
say-
comments were actually deplorable. Yeah, the YouTube comments
Yeah.
were truly disgusting.
and YouTube as well, but on Twitch chat, like, so people were watching what, you know, was a real home invasion, and people were fucking saying, "Oh yeah, this is great." Like, now, it wasn't an exodus of people on Twitch that decided to call 911, and in fact, if you read the Fox News report, it says that it was one person. The person that made the original call was in Europe. It said they called someone here in the United States. That person then called the Temp Police Department, said Lieutenant Mike Pooley with the Temp Police Department. Nice bit of repetition there from Fox News. I wasn't actually there. So the guy who called wasn't even the guy watching the stream. I have a friend that streams video games online through a webcam, and I had a bunch of people tell me that someone came in with a gun and it looks like they were robbing them, said a 911 caller. and then it goes when they asked who the original tip was from, the 911 operator who took it said he doesn't live in this country. He lives somewhere in Europe. I don't remember the country exactly. So the idea that it was like this
This is so
exodus
insane.
of do-gooders.
That's not that uncommon actually. It's called bystander apathy. It's actually a really well observed psychological phenomenon. You'd be really surprised at the fucked up shit that people.
How it fits to me is like, oh, Rich, when are you going to write something good about the Dota community? We saved human lives today, and I was like, holy shit, really?
Part of the season finale for Seinfeld. Right, or the show's finale for Seinfeld. If you guys remember, yeah, they all watched a fat person getting robbed, and they didn't help, man.
That's right.
Seinfeld was one of the greatest shows. Scott really eager to point out that it is Tempe, Arizona.
Oh, it was in Arizona.
And
yeah.
us slimy assholes, we ruin everything. American.
But yeah, it's just like that is so insane. Like it's just so absolutely crazy. Because this technology didn't exist 3 or 4 years ago. So one person is in custody, another person at large on the lam. But that's just like so bizarre. It's so bizarre. And then, I mean, like these are big. This wasn't like a sort of like small Dota streamer. Well, it was a smallish Dota streamer, but it was like he and his girlfriend are like an important part of the community. And I hear they're okay, but they're a little shook up. Shook up seems to be the term going around, which I feel like is appropriate. They themselves own guns. The robber was looking for drugs and guns. And then Sunsfan, being the obliging host that he is, like when the robber came in and was like, hey, we're looking for the drugs and the guns, we were like, hey, we're drugless. But we have guns, so help yourself to the guns. Yeah, so I mean, like, this is just like truly...
Kind of makes you wonder.
Wow.
They did have interest anyway. We're after the drugs and the guns. Yeah.
You can have the guns that you can shoot me with, right, too.
But this fucking stash of Afghani Kush I've got in my loft, you ain't touching that. So
yeah. Help yourself to the guns, but I'm holding out, like, you know. There was like another weird thing. I didn't watch the stream live because it was really early, my time. At one point in time, like one of the folks like actually unplugs the webcam and like turns off the computer. And I can only imagine like what a stressful situation that must be. That's got to be so crazy.
Right.
You know, like to speculate, like when a robber realizes that he's been on webcam, that has to be the absolute worst and so crazy. You know what I mean? Like when a robber's like, Jesus Christ, this webcam's been on. I have no idea. So like, yeah, one person in custody, another person at large. They seem really shook up. But the best for them. The reason I know them is like when the Evil Geniuses team was based out of Phoenix, they were really eager to do content. Sunsfan did a lot of stuff at the TI4 qualifiers. They're a solid group of people, and I hope that they shake this off. Because that is, I mean, that's just absolutely crazy. No one wants.
I gotta say as well. Like I know I touched upon it earlier, but Cody brings up a good point as well. The video, which I know, like if anything, you know, this is like one of the few things I suppose that you could point to as a positive gaming story. That's what we're pretty much reduced to. There was another school shooting in Oregon in the last 24 hours, so I imagine we're going to be outing some more gamers for being responsible for that. But it was incredible. What wasn't positive was literally, I'd never seen anything like it. Like the YouTube comments were outrageous, next level. That's what you get for being, what was it, a streaming whore or something?
Oh, God.
Dude, John, is Total Biscuit still on the channel? Yeah, he commented on this earlier on Twitter. Like, some of you guys just need to fucking grow up. It's like so disgusting. And it's not even you guys. Like I have to presume that like the people who watch this show are better than this. But like some of those YouTube people are like just so fucking disgusting, and it's not even funny, guys. It's absolutely not even funny.
I heard that about 20% of the comments were actually posted on Thorin's anonymous YouTube account.
Yeah. He had smurfed it and it simultaneously.
But this is what I mean. I mean,
got
to
On
be
Gamers
fair,
banned from Reddit at the same time because he was using the same proxy, so they tracked him down.
It's got to be said that the same community that holds... I mean, this is the same community that holds everybody here up to this ridiculously high standard, right? So, cool, guys.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, you know, real cool. That,
solid boys.
Yeah, the same guy that's going to post something like that and then defend his right to post something like that is going to take away my right to say something about a particular issue. That's great. I'm real happy working in this industry. Keep it up, you know? Honestly, this is yeah, it highlights fucking so much that's wrong with esports. This weird little incident.
Yeah.
I'm fucking glad that people weren't hurt. Actually, speaks volumes about the nature of the esports industry as well. That when someone told me it happened, I initially was cynical. That I didn't even think it was a real thing.
This has to be fake. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I certainly, if I'd watched it live and have called, I'd have been like, man, get the gimmicks, the lengths people will go to get streamer numbers. This is worse than winter. That's what I would have said.
This is worse than winter.
Winter's coming, man.
Yeah, I know. Brace yourselves. He really is coming, bro.
All right, more Dota stuff.
Yeah, actual Dota tournaments, not just home invasion.
So we're moving on to the summit. The summit is. I did a small preview. I thought it was so-so. I got to talk to Gods about it. The day before the tournament started, and then I published it the day the tournament started. So it's so-so. I don't think it. I don't know how much sharing it deserves, but the tournament itself I thought was really successful. The games were really great. Evil Geniuses won. So one of the really interesting things about Dota, and it's sort of a unique thing in esports, it's like really difficult to address, but there is always sort of an us versus them mentality in every single esport, right? So in StarCraft 2, the Koreans are typically better than the Westerners. In League of Legends, the Koreans are typically better than the Westerners, and the Eastern players and Chinese are often better than the Westerners. Evil Geniuses show up, play like shit the first couple of days, and then just like win out. And it was a really fantastic tournament. Now, this was supposed to be the equivalent of Home Story Cup for Dota, and it was, in terms of production, so-so. It was very, very so-so. So the mainstream was one camera pointed at one couch, almost exclusively. I'd say maybe 10%, 20% of the time at most, it would shift to like this inflatable pool or one of the player cams, like in their rooms. Not nearly as good. So I really want to give like a tip of the hat to Take TV, because like this was a huge point of inspiration, and like in the preview, Gods acknowledged like Home Story Cup was a tremendous source of inspiration for this. The tournament itself, I think they have a compendium, so like you can crowdsource a lot of your events in Dota, all of your events, and I think it just finished over 130K, so it was a 130K event with 80K being crowdfunded, and it was awesome. Lane Sun from Twitch was there. The games are just absolutely awesome. I guess this begins the official pre-TI4 season, so you have this, then the Dream League Finals, then ESL 1, then maybe something I'm forgetting. Game's fantastic. Production, I think, really Twitch or Take can. There's a lot of room for inspiration in terms of production, but yeah, I thought that was really good. This was the first LAN event without Fear, so Fear announced his retirement.
Oh, he announced his retirement.
Yeah, well. Fear announced that he wouldn't be playing prior to TI4.
Yeah, we knew that.
Yeah. And there's been some mixed messaging. Maybe some due diligence was missed by the Evil Geniuses camp about whether he'll be playing or not playing again. Because depending on the interview you read, he'll be out, until post TI4. He'll never be playing again. But he was there in person, and the squad on that final day looked really good. So, I mean, they beat DK in the final rounds. RTZ looked really great. One of the crazy things about Dota is, like, after a big tournament, when you play in pubs, everyone starts playing, like, whatever people were playing. So you see, like, a lot of Phantom Assassins mid and shit. But it was a great tournament. I think it was just shy of 150K on all languages.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was sick. I just thought that was awesome.
Yeah, that's a good amount.
Yeah, so I thought it was a good showing. Like I said earlier in this show, I missed Home Story Cup 1, so I have no idea what the production was like. I'm not sure if it's appropriate or fair to compare the Summit.
Well, I mean, the
standards Cup 9.
Yeah, the standards totally different. So
do you want to do the man thing while we're in a Dota 2 thing?
The what?
The man thing?
The Mason thing.
No, I don't want to do it. You've had more whiskey than I have.
Mason.
I've had 0 whiskey, but I've had a lot of beers, and I
What the fuck's
still
a
don't
Mason?
want to do it.
No, but I think it's interesting because Destiny's touched upon how, you know, if you're in the public eye, you can't behave a certain way. So I'll ask Stephen, if a player says the N-word while playing games,
Oh.
In we go, boys.
Oh.
should he be allowed to represent an organization that has already made their viewpoint about the N-word abundantly clear? That's a serious question, Stephen.
It's up to the organization, no? Is this a trick question?
No, but what I'm saying, it's not a trick question. It's, do you think, therefore, then that, okay? Because here's why I ask. Because I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that everybody knows Mason is, you know, pretty verbally abusive in Dota, and there's certainly several screenshots going around about him using the M word, right? So, do you think, based on everything we've talked about earlier in the episode, that's okay? I mean, like, or now is it that he shouldn't be held up to a higher standard?
Don't make okay. So this is like just a quick thing. Please don't make the mistake of thinking that my personal views are the same as the public views. I'm just saying
good.
that if you want to function in the public eye, there are ways that you have to act, whether or not you agree with them. That's why I say you have to take the world for what it is, not what you'd like it to be. Right? Right.
Okay,
So
cool.
I would want to establish that. That's really important. In regards to if there are. I mean, the honest answer, if there are things floating around with the guy saying the N-word on a game, then it comes down to the asset versus liability of the client. I mean, if they think that the guy is like a really good asset to the team, then they can float by the messages by releasing a public statement saying, oh, like, he won't rage anymore, he's sorry, in his past he did some bullshit, blah, blah, blah. But if they don't think that it's worth it, then they'll say, like, oh, well, we didn't know this, we kicked him, peace. I mean, that's what'll happen, no?
Okay, well, if you were a manager of an organization and you had to penalize people for using racial epithets in the past, and you had said publicly when you removed someone from your organization, you released this impassioned statement about why the N-word is so ugly, and I know a lot of people are saying, why didn't you just say
Hypothetically.
it? It's very, hypothetically, of course this is. But it's a very good point.
Oh, I'm sorry. I completely and totally misunderstood you. Is this an opportunity to show on Alex Garfield? Because if so, then yeah, he should definitely kick.
Thank you.
These are seldom said.
So,
I mean,
hypothetically, if you issued a statement which said, now, moving on to points more relevant to the happenings of the past several days, let me be clear. It is my personal opinion that nigger is the ugliest, most repulsive word in the American English vocabulary.
All
right,
Get this window.
I have
By
never said it, typed it, or
PhD
written
in
it.
Black
This is
Studies.
Like, this is.
If it's used in my presence, I
And he didn't
immediately
say,
speak
hey,
up and demand
can
that it not be used again.
I have to interject. He did not say nigger.
Yeah, he
said
didn't.
N.
And we're gonna get to
star.
that reveal in a bit. This is like a Game of Thrones spoiler with you, Stephen. Stop ruining it.
sorry.
What
Oberyn's
is the
dead
word?
because
What
of
is
you.
the word?
Right. If it is
Rich with
used
a
in my
buck.
presence, I immediately speak up and demand that it not be used again in my presence, regardless of context, or circumstances. And for the record, I'm equally sensitive about who can and can't say N dash 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 A. I guess you went a bit ghetto on that one. And that's a different discussion entirely. There are many valid reasons to find the word N dash 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 offensive and repulsive, but for me, the overarching reason is that there is no other word that so efficiently and effectively captures such extreme human injustice and inequality. So if you went on the record, hypothetically speaking, and had said that publicly while releasing someone from your organization for having used the word, do you then think you have an obligation to be consistent and apply that to every player?
It depends on your public image. For me personally, I value the relationship that I have with the ridiculous people that watch me. So, I mean, I try to stay consistent as much as I can, unless I have a very good reason not to, in which I'll explain. But I mean, for... yeah, I don't think Alex... If he thinks he can get away with it, I mean, he'll get away with it. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation, right?
Well, you know, I'm just saying.
You're so baiting, Richard. Richard just
Yeah, he's
trying
trying
to
to
bait
bait me.
just baiting it over
Jeffy's
and
home
over.
from Sweden, and I
Goodness.
really...
No, I just think on a day where I can throw in people under the bus left, right, and center for shit, like I find the hypocrisy startling. I mean, look at the Twitch chat reaction. Like, people are like joking, like, "Oh my god, we should ban him for life." Like, well, hang on, we've just spent an hour debate about how we should fucking murder a journalist for comparing someone to a fucking
Jeffy
planet.
wants to tag in. Yo, Big Jeff wants to come. Jeff wants to tag in.
Jeff's gonna wreck me. because he did debate class. So what's the point?
I mean, I don't want to feel this myself. I don't
I
want
wanna
to do
feel
it.
it.
So let me
if you're just gonna
let me call
bait
in
the
Big
whole
Brother
time,
Jeff. Let me
I'm
call in
fine-
Big
I'm
Brother
gonna
Jeff.
bring
I
in-
don't
Let's
want.
wait,
I'm
real
gonna
fast,
bring
real
in
fast.
Jeff
For the
if you're
people,
gonna
let's say
fucking-
there might be some people in the audience that don't actually know what the fuck you're talking about. Okay, not that that would be me, but can you like? So did this happen with a Dota player on Alliance
Yeah.
or whatever, or what?
Come on.
Well, yeah,
Okay,
the
I'll
player,
I'll just do it. Jeff's coming in right now. So
yeah, the
Jeff's
player
in.
that
What's up,
they
Jeff?
brought in to basically be that, he was a stand-in for ages, and this story actually broke when he was a stand-in, and everyone went, well, he's a stand-in, so it doesn't matter. But now
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
yeah, we
Can hear
can,
you.
brother.
Alright,
But
so-
now he's full time. So,
Okay,
but yeah,
gotcha.
yo, Jeff.
Mr. Dick Lewis, I've heard you. You've talked about this subject a few times, and I know you guys have your opinion of Alex Garfield. So that'll obviously get roped in. And
I actually
there's-
like Alex, though. I know you don't believe me, but
Okay.
that's
But on
true.
this subject, there's a couple different things that I'd like to take. Like it's been mentioned in parts, but it's never been succinctly put together. Well, never's a strong word, but like the times that it has been put together, I don't think it's been used as an argument. So you're quoting something that he wrote about a B-level commentator that recently came under the employ of EG and not just having said the N-word, but like I think the NASL stat was that in 40% of his games he said it several times. Like it was like this was a word that he didn't just say; it was a part of his vocabulary. But that's besides the point. The point is he said it a bunch. So this guy comes in. He's a part of a team league that we employ. He is not an integral part of EG's image. He's becoming a part of that image. So this language comes out. He's immediately canned, and Alex takes this opportunity. And this is where you and Steven a lot of times refer back to as like this big moment of hypocrisy. But I want to offer this alternative perspective, which is he took this moment in time to speak out to a lot of impressionable gamers and say, yo, when it comes to this industry, when it comes to things that I control, my company, this language is not to be tolerated. Now, the reason you guys refer to this hypocritically is because then there's times like Idra's language, Stefano talking about having sex with a minor, Huck used the N-word and then it was immediately deleted. And actually just today, Ricky Ortiz tweeted, "This nigga don't come cheap" or something like that, and he's talking about
Lines, Jeff.
Mega
You're
Man.
treading.
Yes. Oh, me? I don't give a shit. And it's in
Dangerous
reference to it's okay. Thank you,
I'm just
Cody.
kidding.
Anyways,
I'm just kidding.
sure. My point is, in all of these situations, Alex spoke out to this and said, "This is not good." And in all the situations I just cited, these players were fined and spoken to and told not to do these things. So these players are obviously like by orders of magnitude more important, if you will, in the raw business sense than he who shall. I actually can't remember his name, and that's so fucked up. But the caster that
Orb.
said the N word.
Orb. It was Orb.
Yeah.
Poor Orb.
Exactly.
He's a chef now in Seattle, by the way. For all those
Crazy
wondering.
cool facts. Just a second though. So in this situation, what Alex can't come out and say, but we all know and read between the lines is Orb is a small fish. He doesn't actually fucking matter. But I'd like to take this opportunity to say that this really sucks and you shouldn't do that. And on the flip side, what Alex also can't say when Idra says, I hope you die in a fire and get cancer, which is like obviously as bad or worse, whatever. It's a terrible thing. He says he can't say Greg is super important to our image. We've invested tons of time, money, and energy into him, so he has more leeway. So from this point in time, you guys jump on him. You're like, oh, what a hypocrite. Fuck you. Oh, you're so bad. Oh, Black Studies degree. But instead, the alternative image here is he has like a teetering act that he has to do. He has a company that employs a lot of people, that has millions of dollars shifting around it, but he also has ideals, and he took an opportunity to, on the one hand, in a business way, make a good business decision, but also take the opportunity to speak out to people and say, please don't do this. And then in other situations, hang on, not done with my point, he finds people, he says this is still bad, but he doesn't act as severe because he can't due to his business. So why is that like so strange and hypocritical and wrong?
Well, the definition of hypocrisy is to not employ moral standards or beliefs across the board, right? I mean,
I don't believe that is the definition of that.
Okay, well,
I would say it would be hypocritical of him to be okay with the action, right? The punishment is intangible; it comes separate. The severity of, if you want to say it's like he's locked into the severity of the punishment, then I would tell you that's unrealistic, and that's the argument we're making, right?
But I think
Okay,
I think the
so
problem.
then my other issue would be in this instance, like we've talked about, the small fish and the sliding scale. I think you're absolutely right and on the money to highlight that, because indeed that's the driving force behind the disparity in punishments. But the EG Dota team are pretty soon gonna, they've got the potential to perform on the biggest esports stage of all. Now, what kind of message does that send out?
Oh, I agree. So no, so to update this argument, to get into the more relevant times, Mason Dota is obviously, and you guys will have to understand, I'm not like sitting in on talks with Alex between him and these guys. So this is speculation, but I'd like to believe that it's probably very, very informed on the subject matter. Mason Dota is like he's kind of a wild card. If you read his Twitter, it's a fucking picture of a princess, and it says like, "This is my Twitter, and nobody else can have it." And then in his AMA, it's all about tentacle porn, and like he's just like kind of weird, eccentric guy. But don't give a fuck because I'm from Dota. You know what I mean? Like no big man can hold me down.
That's
and
where
he's like, I didn't want to do the sellout shit, but I'm here at the office board.
Yeah,
Anyways,
so his AMA is like, hey, I'm like waiting for my passport for someone to get it. That's certainly.
So let me tell you. Thank you, Cody. That's what I just said. So.
I wanted to back you up.
Anyways.
No, I mean, Jeff, you were not going to get any backup today. So if anything, me reiterating you might be the sole support you get in this conversation. So I was trying my best.
I did need that, sports bro. I appreciate it. So Mason Dota, like I can tell you, when he had this sit down with Alex Garfield, it probably went very similar to how he had this sit down with Arteezy, who was a very similar figure, who has also tweeted really, things that got him fans, but also when you put on that like straight-laced suit and tie of EG, quote unquote, all of a sudden that becomes a little bit problematic. But I say a little bit because we still have like, Nanima was fucking Alliance, Idra was EG, Huck was EG, or is EG. So it's not like I can make this argument with a completely like, oh, EG is so manner, right? No, they employ a lot of the guys that get big fan bases because they're like this. But when he comes out and says something like this and does something like that, there's two things that happen. One is what I want to happen, and one is what does happen. I'm sure what does happen is Alex sits him down and says, here's the fine, you can't do that, or, next time it'll be bigger. And then here's what I want to happen. I would like him to have that conversation, but then come out and publicly say each time, I guess, which is that transparency that people are talking about that hasn't happened yet but could perhaps get there, is where when a player does something like this, it's issued publicly, right? This is something we all, like a lot of the flack EG has caught is because players are fined or penalized behind the scenes, and then people are like, oh, EG doesn't give a fuck. And then I have to go to the forums, I'm like, no, actually that guy was fine and EG does care about it. But if it's not known publicly, then that transparency doesn't exist, and then the assumption is that people are okay with it.
So my next point to that would be then the offending screenshots have been circulating around the cyberspace for some time, and why wouldn't an organization as media savvy as EG and someone with as much experience of managing organizations as Alex Garfield not want to get ahead of the story?
Well, to be brutally honest, and this is, again, I don't have this conversation with Alex, so this is like, I'm trying to be very unfiltered, if you will, but I do this because I think this is still correct. It's just, it's a little bit depressing because you're putting it out to the public, and if you don't, like, I truly believe probably 60% of people would crash their cars into a brick. Anyways, I'm getting off subject, but the point I'm trying to, the sad point that I will make publicly to people is that the very business and PR savvy Alex Garfield /EG would look at this and say, well, there isn't huge public outcry. It's not a big story. He's not doing it rampantly, so it's not like a burning flame that we have to put out. So it would actually probably give it more attention to speak out to it from their level and actually create more negativity than to get ahead of the story, as you say. Because like you said, it's been around for a while, and it hasn't caught steam. Now, I say that, but please give me the opportunity to say, I think that's a shame. I really do. I don't think like every little thing a player does. I don't think every little thing a player does. Not to say this is little necessarily, but I don't think they should all be blown up. But if you do go on record as firing someone for a word that is, in my opinion, at the top of the totem pole of words, or near the top at least of words that you probably should never fucking utter for any reason at all, then you got to stick kind of true to that and probably act pretty consistently. But in this case, all the buzz, all the PR around EG's Dota squad. Is it about Mason Dota saying that? No. It's about winning the summit and how they're heading into TI as a legitimate chance for a non-Chinese team to win the damn thing. So if they were to come out and say, oh, by the way, guys, Mason Dota can act like kind of a douchebag and he's fined and he's penalized to run 10 laps around a track. I'm going to witness him and watch him make him do it, you know, and then he has to eat rice for a year. No, they're not going to do that.
I think the issue with everything that you just said is 100% spot on, right? Obviously,
Yes.
you can't treat every single player the same, you know. You can't have the same degree of severity with somebody who's a major asset versus somebody who's only a liability, you know. I mean, all of that makes perfect sense. The reason why, I mean, at least for me personally, and I guess for Richard and for I don't know how other people think, the reason why people give Alex Garfield so much flack for the hypocrisy is because when the orb thing happened, all Alex had to do was make a statement that said, hey guys, personally, I hate that word. I don't like the fact that he's used it so much, and at this point in time, you know, EG has decided to terminate our relationship with Orb due to that. And, like, that would have been the statement, and it's like, well, damn, I mean, like, that's it. Like, I mean,
Sure.
everybody would have understood, and he moved on. The problem was that he took the opportunity there to stand on a soapbox
preach.
and make this impassioned plea that
Sure.
left him no wiggle room. Like, he kind of hung his own noose or whatever, or crucified
Sure.
himself or whatever. Like, he boxed himself into a corner that left him no leeway for future anything, you know.
Well,
I
let me
think
speak
that's
to
where
that because I think that's a valid point. You're right. He went a little bit. He exposed his emotion and the sensitivity of the issue, right? So what I would ask you then to do is compare that to what happened later, which was Stefano on Bling's stream saying, yo, I had sex with a girl that turned out to be underage. Jesus Christ. This is a terrible situation, right?
The
Alex
official
Garfield-
policy is that still didn't happen. It was a joke, by the way.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, that's
Yeah,
the
you gotta-
official word.
Well, you gotta. I mean, you guys still sponsored by Kingston, so we gotta let that go.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I understand. So what ended up happening after that, by the way, is like compare the two responses. An issued statement is made where he says, this is unacceptable, this is bad, he will not be attending this major tournament, and he is to be on the bench for a month, and he's also missing out on his salary, which at the time was like $7,000 or something big. That all actually went through, and Alex did not take that opportunity to get up on his pedestal and say, listen, guys, I think girls and guys should start having sex at age 17 and 18 in every country on planet Earth because I took a study in women's vaginas and I know when they can take on a dick. You know, like, that didn't happen. And I can tell you from behind the scenes, it was partially in part because when he did issue that response, it wasn't just Richard Lewis and Destiny that looked at that and went, whoa, you are preaching to us. This is like, what, your fucking black studies degree? What is all this about? And he was like, oh, all right, hang on. This is like, that's not what I wanted. And even after that, his responses have been even more PR related and less about him. So what I would tell you is just take a moment to look and say, your guys are right. You shouldn't get on a pedestal as the CEO of a company and be like, you know, due to my degree and my experience, I know this to be wrong, because it sets an impossible standard that he cannot maintain within the business, but also it's too emotional, it's too sensitive for what actually transpired. So
it's
you
not.
guys
Well,
are
it's
right
not.
in your criticism.
It's not so much the fact that it's too emotional or that he even can't maintain it as a business, because he can maintain it as a business, but he would have to do so at a financial loss. It's the idea of, like, everybody in America, oh, I guess I'll remember, gets a really bad taste in their mouths when politicians pander to certain crowds, right? A politician will go to Detroit and they'll talk about how manufacturing industry is the most important thing in the world. And then that same politician will go to Colorado and talk about how, like, legalizing weed is the most important thing in the entire thing. And then they'll go to and it's like, at some point you're like, what the fuck are you even saying anymore? Like, you're only here telling me what I want to hear. Like, and then at some point it's like, do your words mean anything? Do you actually have any ethics or morals? Or I mean, obviously, you know, it gets a little bit more extreme at that point. But that's like, and I mean, this might sound a little bit hypocritical coming from me, but imagine the sadness
would.
when there are people. I mean, it's not. But imagine the sadness. Imagine the sadness when there are people in the community who actually do feel very strongly about that, right? You have, whether it's a black dude or a white dude with black friends who actually have grown up in shitty areas, who have dealt with people using words like nigger at them, and it's been a terrible thing. And then Alex fucking Garfield from EG comes out with a really fucking cool statement. Holy shit, this guy actually gets it. You know, he doesn't even like the word spoken. I'm like, god damn, like, that's really fucking cool. I'm actually going to be a supporter of EG now. And then in the future, you find out oh, I guess he really didn't mean any of that. It was just because Orb wasn't worth shit to the company. He was just saying it to kind of get us on his side. Like what?
Well,
Like imagine the letdown of that when you find out that he
sure,
doesn't actually have anywhere near the conviction to his statement when he released the original, PR blurb.
Stephen, I don't think you'll find an argument or defense from me on that. I agree fully. What I would tell you is we can go no further than using the example of Stephen Bonnell, aka Destiny, who started off as this scrappy young carpet cleaner that did not make a whole lot of money, but then his personality got him a lot of attention on the internet. And that personality was, off the cuff, and it was fucking raw, and I don't give a shit. I'm above it all. But then when teams started coming around and gigs at jobs started coming around and sponsors and razors and all that shit started coming around, your personality has taken, it's moved down a couple of notches on a few of these words because you are in front of audiences. You are speaking to people that will have that impassioned moment where they're like, Jesus, he just said the word cunt. Or the
Yeah, but
N-word.
the
I don't like.
difference is
Well, hang on. Let me finish my point. My point is, in these situations, there's a growth that occurs. And you had this growth happen to you. And you wouldn't like it if people were going around saying, well, I can't trust anything Steven ever says because back 2.5 years ago, he really felt strongly about something and then later didn't hold it up to that same standard, and it's documented on the internet. I've got you now, you motherfucker. But we know that between you and Alex Garfield, there's a learning curve, and there's a situation where, yes, Alex should not have done what he did for the reasons you guys stated, and I agree with you. But what I'm asking you to address your attention to is that since that point in time, he's actually dialed it back to accessible and places where we're okay with it. That's why your best example of him being a hypocrite dates almost 3 years ago, right?
was that 3 years ago when Orb got kicked off? I don't remember how long ago it was.
Probably
It was 2011.
pretty close.
2011.
But I mean, the difference is if you go back and you find any statement of anything I've said ever, I've always told you what I've thought at the time. You're never going to find me making a statement saying like, oh, I believe this and I believe this. And then as soon as I go home, like a week later, it's like, okay, I didn't actually think that at all. I just kind of had to say it for the PR. I mean, obviously things that I've said in the past, I have changed. I do have different views on things now. And I do adjust the way that I conduct myself publicly. But I mean, like I've released statements about that. I wrote a big fucking little blogger thing on my website, describing like why I try not to say the word faggot as much. Like I'm very open about all of that. You never at any point in my life, I don't think you ever have to look back and say like, was Destiny just saying that because he wanted to get a bunch of people to like him? Like it's way different. So for you to go like, well, look,
I don't
you've
think
learned and
Alex
grown as a
Garfield said
well,
that
hold on.
just because,
Well,
right?
for you to say, look, like you've grown as a person and you changed, like sure, I mean, like I agree with that, and I have changed some things. But for you to say the same about Alex in this particular circumstance, like what did he learn and grow? That sometimes it's okay to tolerate the word nigger as long as the
No.
person on your team is worth enough.
That's
Like what's
mixing my
the
words pretty grossly, Stephen. Like you actually just acknowledged that, yes, in time people change their arguments, and I've given you evidence that the next time a big issue came up, he changed his approach, and then you insinuated that he would perhaps say something just because he wanted to win people's opinion at the time. No, if anything, Alex Garfield is not victim, excuse me. He's guilty of expressing too much of his personal opinion as the CEO of a company of dozens of players with robust personalities and at times bad personalities, for fuck's sake. So Alex is not going to get on the pedestal every single time one of those words is uttered. And if that's what it takes to not be a hypocrite for you guys, then I would argue that your standard is impossible to achieve. And that's
So
all I'm
then
asking you
you're-
to address.
so then so just for clarification then, the growth that Alex Garfield has was he went from being a person who absolutely could not ever stand to be near somebody that had ever uttered that word to being a person who could tolerate it, or what's the personal growth? Can you illustrate that for me? Or I don't understand.
Okay, I'll readdress this because apparently it was forgotten. But the
Okay.
personal growth is his initial response was to give that impassioned speech about how personal it is to him and how it's close to his education. And then it goes to the Stefano and so on, where the response is, nope, this player did something wrong. They're fine. Here's the punishment. We're sorry that they did that, and our sponsors are also sorry, and we'll move on. And then, like, you guys are trying to make the argument that because he's not as severe to him as he was to Orb, it means he's hypocritical. And I tried to make this argument earlier. You can disagree with it, but my argument was that what's not being said is that obviously, unfortunately, in this world ran by money, it's not always so simple as I have this intolerable standard that addresses everyone. If Barack Obama walks into the EG offices and says, "My nigga Alex Garfield," and slaps him in the face, Alex Garfield puts on a smile and says, "Mr. President, I'd like another one," or whatever. You know, obviously that's the highest of fucking examples. But my point is, there are different standards for different people. And unfortunately, and again, please hear my opinion where I say, I don't like that this is true, but it is. Idra, Huck, Stefano, etc. In this case, Mason heading into a $10 million fucking tournament is on a different level than Orb coming out of God knows where to cast where he can be replaced on the spot, as we saw happen, and numbers aren't affected. Is that okay? Is that good? No. But we do understand that business does take a part in that. Should Alex have expressed that the N-word is so important to him that he feels he's been moved to not be around people? No, that's not good, because then what happens is the next time an idiot uses that word, unless Alex Garfield fires them and literally physically removes them from his presence, he will be a hypocrite. So what I'm trying to, that's the summary. Now what I push to you guys is say, okay, based on what we all address right now, and looking at his actions post that moment in time 3 years ago, do we still hate him? Do we think he's a hypocrite? Do we hold him to the standard of, like, unless you act the same way every single time, I don't like you, Steven Destiny? Because I hope that's not the case. Because I look at you, I look at Richard, I look at myself, and I see examples of us being fucking dicks, quite literally with you, and I see, like, examples of all of us doing really bad things, but then needing to, like, address and learn from this. And we don't need to make a public statement about it because we're not CEOs of million-dollar companies, but people can see it through our streams, people can read it through Richard's articles, and that happens. I don't, like, cite back to Richard Lewis one time pushing me down when I was 12 years old because I knew it was fucking him, because I could recognize his trolley ballsack head, and then I hold that against him for the rest of his life. That wouldn't be fair.
I think the fairness is debatable, but the language is what. So Richard's talked to me about this for weeks. I
was going to say, Jeff, you've got to understand, I've even reached out to Alex and been like, please don't make me mention this. But, you know, seriously, like, I actually did. Because, you know, it's a cheap shot. But let's just say, and this is the point I made to Cody, let's say I feel as passionately about the use of the N-word and perceived racism as a Alex Garfield from less than 2.5 years ago felt, then I would have some sort of moral obligation to myself to challenge the idea that somebody who was, you know, content to utter the words liberally as if it didn't mean anything was then going to go on and potentially win a huge amount of money and effectively be in a position where EG, despite having this clear standard, are going to be the conduit through which he can win that money. So, I mean, if I felt as strongly as Alex did about it then, at this point, let's say I just had my Black Studies awakening, if you want to call it that, then I would have a moral obligation to bring it to the public's attention, wouldn't I? And to try and do something about it. Now, I didn't message any sponsors or do anything underhand like that. I took it to Alex himself and said, are you aware? Do you get why people might think he wasn't interested in that? And it's not been addressed. And even at that point, if he'd said, you know what, yeah, we'll release a statement, await the statement, I wouldn't have said anything about it. But it doesn't matter how much time passes. It's like, you're absolutely right. We can learn, we can evolve. Like, if you were to pull something up that I said 4 years ago and I was like, oh my God, I cannot fucking believe I said that, I'd have to sit here with my head in my hands and basically be like, yeah, I said it, I fucked up. You know, and I did it recently with you know, I said TB was an asshole.
Well,
you know?
What Alex is guilty of is not publicly admitting that he was wrong on that? Is that what you're upset about?
It's not a matter that he's wrong in a statement. It's a matter that he was wrong and that he doesn't feel as strongly about that word as he said he did.
He does. Absolutely he does.
So does he, like, go into work every day hating himself, that he has to work with people that he has known or has to pay?
No, and he didn't at the time either. No, I think you're embellishing what he said. He said, I don't like to be
around... I'm not embellishing. The statement was extreme.
Hang on. What he said is, I don't like to be around people that use that word, correct? Do we agree? Do we agree?
I mean, it was an extreme statement.
I did
there's
read
no
it.
embellishment.
I
heard you. This is actually a calculated thing that I'm doing. I'm trying to get points established so that we don't have to keep going back to it and pretend that it wasn't said. So we agree that he said, I don't like to be around people that use that word. And I'm not, you can argue the severity of all you like, and I'll agree with you. I'm not arguing that point. The point I'm trying to make is, I think you guys imagine this world where he said that, and then he pushed away from his computer, and his 15 best black friends all got together, and they like went to gospel church, and they like, oh loaded,
God,
like
no,
became
no
this really
gospel
like
to the table,
this
Jeff.
amazing moment in time where he like washed the sins away. Like that's not what happened. What he communicated was, yo, this is part of my education. I have friends that use this word a lot. I don't like to be around it. That's the level of bothering that that's the level of jimmies that I get rustled.
Your scores are wrong.
So this guy is fired because it's intolerable. We're really sorry, and I hate this word, and here's why. And then time goes on, and other players end up using this word. And if I understand correctly, the reason you guys are upset is because the precedent that was established, on those words, is that Alex Garfield cannot control himself at all. When that word's used, he's like, fuck me, that guy's fired, because that's the worst thing they can ever do. And if that's the impression you got, what I would tell you is that that's not what Alex was trying to communicate. He was trying to communicate that this word sucks, and here's why. This guy's fired. And that standard is not universal. It was applied to Orb. That language of the word is true, but the standard is only applied to Orb because of Orb. And the precedent that is set after that, 1 second, it's upheld by that. Stefano, Huck, Naniwa, these are guys that have arguably done singular or multiple actions. And I know Huck's listening, so that's why I say singular, because he's only really done that one thing. Beyond that have done things that are arguably worse. But they weren't fired, and that's because that standard is not applied to them.
I think it's a massively problematic statement to say, I don't want to be around people who say the word, but I'll happily employ them and give them a platform through which to reap numerous financial rewards. I think that's hugely problematic because clearly you can see how the latter is worse. Like, I have issues and have had issues, and Stephen knows this, with numerous things Stephen has said, but I'll hang out with him, I'll do a show with him. But like, would I give him access to my bank account predicated on those things he said? Terrible example, don't know where I'm going with it. But the point being, that if you're willing to effectively employ someone in an organization that is your brand and you are the brand ambassador, bar none, then I don't know. I think that goes beyond hypocrisy and rhetoric and all of the things that we're engaging in.
What I would contend then is that what Alex is guilty of, according to you, is not having like the business acumen as Richard Lewis, lead editor of
oh, come on, don't throw a cheap shot in.
The point
the
I'm
problem is
trying
to have the best of both worlds.
On,
I want to put out these really impassioned moral statements, but I also, on the other hand, only want to function in terms of making the most money. You can't have the best of both. It's either you feel so strongly about this word that you'll detach yourself from anybody who uses it, you'll never pay them, blah, 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 and which is fine if you want to be that, or it's you think that running your business is the most important thing, and sometimes there are some personal sacrifice, which is fine too. Both of those are fine, but you can't take the best from both worlds and then expect to just carry on like everything is okay. Like, I think you're. I don't know. That's really uncomfortable, in my opinion.
I think this is a stupendously strange conversation to have with you. Then I find, because on the one hand, I look at you both as very intelligent people, the strange thing about this is how close this should be to all of us. Like, Richard Lewis, in an argument with me, said faggot, which to him wasn't a big deal, but universally is accepted to be a very bad word. And then he later came back and was like, yo.
Just to interrupt you because you're actually misrepresenting me there.
No, I have to. Well,
no, you're not getting involved either, Stephen.
No, because this is if we're going to do the debate club champ thing, I mean, this argument is fallacious. Like, even if me and Richard were both the absolute biggest hypocrites in the world, it doesn't change anything what we're saying about Alex Garfield. Like, even if I were to come forward and say I am a hypocrite on everything I've ever said, it has absolutely no bearing.
It's a conversation of ethics, so that's why I would say it's appropriate. But go ahead,
Richard. I didn't use the word faggot aimed at you, or indeed aimed at an individual. It wasn't used as a noun. It was used as an adjective. And again, I think that's a very specific thing. Because what I referred to as possessing the qualities of a faggot, which I do not take in any way, shape, or form to mean homosexual. I take it to mean pathetic. And I imagine a lot of people in the UK adopt that same standpoint, but I was using it as an adjective. I wasn't using it to describe anyone. And before we get into a debate about the elasticity of language... Hang on.
You interrupted
No, you're big on letting people finish, so you'll afford me some courtesy, I'm sure. Right. So the elasticity of language, right? Faggot originally, its origins, its etymology, it basically used to mean a
Oh, my
very
God.
angry woman.
Oh
Right? It
my
used to
God.
mean a very angry woman, and then
Are
it
you
got
filibustering me right now? I can't.
no.
tell.
It used to mean a very angry woman. So this is a ridiculous. The idea that it can't even be used as an adjective. I got to be honest. I was like, holy shit! I can't believe people are getting offended by this. But you know what I did? I issued an apology that about and I was very careful about how I worded it. I said I do not like to use language that makes people feel they are unwelcome in esports, and I absolutely stand by that. If there was gay people out there that were mortally offended by my use of the word, and it made them feel like they weren't welcome in esports, or they weren't welcome to read my content or watch a video or watch a show I do, that's terrible, and I apologize for that because I don't like to be an asshole for being an asshole's sake. But I absolutely don't want to get embedded in this ridiculousness that what I actually said was I called someone a faggot, because that isn't what happened. So yeah, just you know,
Okay.
let's
Just
not
next time,
misrepresent
use it
everybody.
as an adjective. Okay. It doesn't change
No, but
my
I mean-
point. It doesn't change my point. So stop, please. Please stop. I'm sorry if you felt like you needed to launch into a giant speech about how you use that word correctly, but you are sorry
No, no,
anyways.
no,
Which
no.
is really
I'm-
weird.
No, I'm not saying I
Um,
used it correctly. And what you're doing here is classic. Let's move away from the Alex Garfield and the N-word issue, and let's talk
No.
about somebody else. Yeah, absolutely. But that's
No.
fine because I mean, you guys did that at the
Richard,
time
stop.
anyway
Let
when
me
you
talk.
coordinated.
Let me talk, please.
The whole Twitter offensive anyway, which was great, and it was awesome of you guys to do that. But ultimately, what you guys did was